Shilasara, qualitatively powerful. Yat, because. Uttama Shloka, one who is praised by selected poems. Guna Abhirupam, as beautiful as godly qualities. Translation. All the great sages who were assembled there also praised the decision of Maharaj Parikshit, and they expressed their approval by saying, very good. Naturally, the sages are inclined to do good to common men, for they have all the qualitative powers of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they were very much pleased to see Maharaj Parikshit, a devotee of the Lord, and they spoke as follows. Excuse me. Translation. Translation, please repeat. All the great sages who were assembled there. Also praised the decision of Maharaj Parikshit. And they expressed their approval by saying, very good. Naturally, the sages are inclined to do good to common men. For they have all the qualitative powers of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they were very much pleased to see Maharaj Parikshit, a devotee of the Lord. And they spoke as follows. Purport. The natural beauty of a living being is enhanced by rising up to the platform of devotional service. Maharaj Parikshit was absorbed in attachment for Lord Krishna. Seeing this, the great sages assembled were very pleased, and they expressed their approval by saying, very good. Such sages are naturally inclined to do good to the common man, and when they see a personality like Maharaj Parikshit advance in devotional service, their pleasure knows no bounds, and they offer all blessings in their power. Devotional service of the Lord is so auspicious that all demigods and sages, up to the Lord himself, became pleased with the devotee. And therefore the devotee finds everything auspicious. All inauspicious matters are removed from the path of a progressive devotee. Meeting all the great sages at the time of death was certainly auspicious for Maharaj Parikshit, and thus he was blessed by the so-called curse of a brahmana's boy. The so-called curse. Certainly, Stringy was thinking he was cursing, but Prabhupada says the so-called, it wasn't a curse for the devotee, for Maharaj Parikshit. He saw it as a great blessing. The so-called curse. Here now, in yesterday's verse, the demigods were praising the decision of Maharaj Parikshit by scattering flowers over the earth and beating celestial drums. Flowers come from the sky. And everyone's sitting there, the flowers start coming down, the drums start beating. So here we find now the demigods were praising, and now also the sages are praising. And the word, of course, here is used, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu. They say like that, isn't it? Sometimes in our meetings in Mayapur, someone in the GBC meeting says something very nice. Everyone goes, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu. Very good. A sadhu is a very good personality, and here's translated as very good. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So they're praising, and all different types of personalities were present, all different levels of realization were there. Some were impersonalists, some were great Vaishnavas, Bhagavats themselves, but all of them recognized that the decision to fast, they all approved. Not only approved, but Now here, also mentioned in the purport at the end, the Prabhupada, he says that yes, Maharaj Parikshit advanced in devotional service. They offered all blessings in their power. So it mentioned here that just as the Supreme Lord has unlimited qualities, the devotee, of course, can have those qualities, of course not in unlimited way like the Supreme Lord, but can have them manifest by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, not in the quantitatively, not in quantity as the Supreme Personality of God, but they can have the same qualities, and depending on their level of advancement, those qualities will be manifest to more or less a degree. And of course the Supreme Lord can also specifically empower someone in certain qualities to act specifically in ways to bring about an auspicious situation. So here it is mentioned by Prabhupada, within their power, and also mentioned here that for one who becomes a devotee, takes up the path of devotional service, that everything becomes auspicious, and all inauspicious matters are removed from the path of a progressive devotee. So they help. Everyone is pleased. It's very important to get not only the approval, especially in matters of devotional service and advancement on the path, to get approval, but get their blessings. And so too in the material world, if you want to do anything, become successful in anything, you have to get the approval of those who are authorities in the matter. It's not that you can just credit yourself, although some may try for that. I'm a doctor and just put up something, but are they actually approved? Where did they get their accreditation? And so when you go for study, it's very important to go through the proper procedure of the accredited institutions with the accredited teachers and so on, and they're seeing your progress, and you're acting in such a way that satisfies them and pleases them. This is very, very important. So even in ordinary affairs, that's the case. If you want to be successful, if you want to be successful at work, you don't work in such a way as you agitate everyone, or you do things in a very wrong way. You come into the field and you just make a mess of everything. You're not going to last long in that job. Or you have an attitude. You're studying at university, you're studying architecture, medicine, whatever you're studying, and you have an attitude towards the institution, or you have an attitude towards the teacher. It doesn't bode well for you, because they have to be satisfied with, not only you have to follow the different procedure of the study and all the rest of it, but you have to satisfy whoever's presenting the course and who's teaching the course. And your advancement very much depends on the satisfaction of that individual and pleasing that individual. So it's going to be very hard for you if you're puffed up and arrogant, condescending, and giving attitude to whoever's presenting the whole situation. So these things have to be taken into consideration, even in the material world. So certainly on the path of devotional service, Prabhupada mentions that the path of spiritual life is made very easy by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially in the Kali Yuga, but generally it is difficult because of our previous attachments, and Prabhupada says that the path of spiritual life, making advancement, is difficult. Therefore, in the verse Tadvidi Pranipatina, he says it is very difficult. Therefore, one must seek guidance from the bona fide spiritual master. One must render service unto him, and be submissive and render service. Then he will impart knowledge unto you. So this is very, very important. All the elements have to be there. If you go to school, if you go to college, all the elements have to be there. It has to be if you've got a good college, you've got good books, you've got good teachers, course is good. Now if you've got all those elements, but if you're bad, you're still going to fail. Right, so you also have to be in the proper mind, and this is very, very important. So in spiritual life, here we see Maharaj Parikshit, more or less he was what's called in the stage of prana tyaga. Prana tyaga means that at the end of the life, prana, you voluntarily you give up the life within this body, and you prepare for the soul, for yourself, going on to the next life, or in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, going back home, back to Godhead. So Maharaj Parikshit was practicing this prana tyaga. Now, generally in prana tyaga, there's all sorts of things one has to do. There's all sorts of guidelines given how to follow the prana tyaga. Generally, one tries to surround themselves with affectionate people, and so this is in the ordinary sense. Of course, Maharaj Parikshit, someone has to beg forgiveness for any offences. All sorts of procedures to follow. So in Maharaj Parikshit, because he was a great devotee, he wanted to surround himself in a very auspicious way, and so on and so forth. So here it is said that anyone who practices devotional service, their natural beauty is enhanced. The natural beauty of the living being, of the spirit soul, is enhanced. Now, the living entity is naturally beautiful. Spirit soul, naturally beautiful. Of course, coming into the material world, the living entity becomes covered by so many layers of conditioning over so many lives. And so the body that one lives in, according to that covering, is perhaps not beautiful, perhaps very an ugly form. Just like in many species of life, as you go down and down, the more coverings are there, then the external body is not very beautiful. But within, there is, underneath all that, there is a natural beauty. So when one takes up devotional service, just like we say in the Shastra, Cheto, Darpana, it's cleansing, purifying. We're purifying, all the impurities come off. Just like if you're making ghee from butter, we would make in the old days, we didn't know where to find ghee. And so we would make the ghee, and we would get the butter, and we would boil the butter. We'd get the butter, and we have to stand there, and you have to keep stirring it. You have to be very careful. You have to have it on the right flame, otherwise it burns. And then gradually, the butter, all the impurities, all the fats come up. They rise to the surface, and then you have to scoop them off. They can be used for other things. Scoop them off, and then the clear, beautiful substance of the ghee is left after that long process. It used to take some time because you have to do it slowly, and the beautiful. The liquid ghee, and the beautiful fragrance also. Quite often when someone was doing that, or I was doing that, it would smell like gulab jamuns. It was so sweet. I mean, has anyone ever done that? When you actually do that, when you make ghee like that, the fragrance of it after all the impurities come out, is very, very beautiful. And it smells almost like gulab jamuns are being cooked. It's kind of a sweet, very beautiful fragrance. So the natural, when all the impurities are gone, so the natural beauty of the soul is there, but it's covered. But when one takes up devotional service, all the coverings are gradually come off, the natural beauty comes out, and is enhanced more and more by practicing devotional service. So this is mentioned here, that the sages, they were very pleased as they could see the natural beauty of the soul. Parikshit, even the external body becomes very beautiful. one who was very advanced in devotional service, they become very fulgent and brilliant, even external, what to speak of. When Prabhupada came, for example, they were so brilliant, effulgent, and beautiful, even though he was elderly. But the brilliance of the soul was very much manifest. So Maharaj Parikshit was absorbed in attachment for Lord Krishna, and so they were very pleased, that the sages were very pleased. Sadhu, sadhu, the decision, I'm fasting, I'm hearing from. So they're very glad about that. And the demigods were very pleased. They showered flowers. So this is natural. One of the qualities of the Lord is that he's very pleased to see someone, and he's very compassionate. And here Prabhupada mentions the sages naturally want to do good even for the common person, what to speak of a great devotee. So that's just a natural quality of someone who is advanced on the spiritual path. Even in the mode of goodness, which is not quite spiritual, if one is developed in the mode of goodness, that tendency to want to help others becomes more prominent. It's there in the soul proper as a quality, because it's there in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the sadhus appreciated that, and they're naturally pleased to see someone advance. Whereas on the other hand, materialists, in some cases they're naturally pleased, and they like to glorify people. We see quite often they have events where some sports star is glorified, or some movie star or some politician is glorified. They have a big event, and the event is centered on glorifying his personality. But it's generally for some material. It's materially motivated, and can sometimes dissipate, or not sometimes, generally dissipate. That feeling dissipates, especially someone who's in the mode of passion and ignorance. So the materialists, on the other hand, especially if they're in the mode of ignorance, they very much don't like to see someone advance. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said like that. Generally the materialists, they're absorbed in themselves, and they're mainly concerned about themselves. And the tendency to lord over is very strong and exploit. So generally when someone's puffed up and arrogant like that, then someone on the lower level, he says they'll exploit them and lord it over, control. Someone on an equal level, they see as an equal level, they compete against them, and they like to boast. They like to boast of their own achievements, trying to compete against them. And some they see as more powerful or in a bigger position. They generally like to pull them down. So the materialists quite often, especially in the Kali Yuga, we see like that. They don't like to see anyone getting ahead. And they'll do all sorts of things to block it, to stop it. And I think I told the story of, I always remember that the statement from Lee Iacocca, who used to be the CEO of Chrysler. He said that he was asked about, and then he retired, and then he was asked about any tips for up and coming executives, perhaps coming up to the CEO position. He said, he said that, I achieved this position, and one thing I would say is that be careful who you tread on the way up. He said, because on the way down, they're going to kick you in the head. So I thought it was a very good statement, because people to get to the topmost, be success, they'll adopt any means. Whereas the spiritualist is not like that at all, and they like to praise. They're actually genuinely pleased, they're genuinely satisfied, and they genuinely praise those who are making advancement. Of course, again, conversely, the materialist sometimes praises someone, but are they actually genuine? There is mention in the Bhagavatam about artificial praise that's motivated for self-aggrandizement. artificial praise. Actually, one should be careful to avoid that, because actually it's an offense. To artificially praise, to be insincere, to be not genuine. Oh, you're so nice, you're so wonderful, you're the greatest of the greatest of the greatest. And then after they're gone, fish, 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 fish. Prabhupada used to call it fish, 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 fish. So someone's not genuine in glorifying someone. Because in the mode of ignorance, their heart's full of envy and ignorance and so on and so forth. So it's very rare to find someone who's actually very genuine about praising. So so the sages are naturally praising. They were very genuine in that. They express their approval, sadhu, sadhu. They like to help people. And what an important personality Maharaj Parikshit was. Demigod, all sorts of, we've mentioned this before, and we've been reading about this, that they came from everywhere, and such a very important personality. And he took the vow to fast. He was, the so-called curse, again mentioned by Prabhupada, was actually a blessing. He was looking forward to it. And we read later on in the Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, that how Takshaka, he was summoned by the Brahmana in his mantra. He summoned Takshaka to come and bite, and Takshaka, he had a very poisonous. So he is like the Takshaka, the snake, or the snake bird. And in the 12th canto, there's a whole description of how he was going to go and bite Maharaj Parikshit, but he disguised himself as a Brahmana. So there it is said that after the 7 days, and there were those who actually, it was mentioned that those who were going to try to stop it, even though Maharaj Parikshit had accepted it and was even looking forward to it, those who were around him were thinking, oh, we're going to look out for this Takshaka, and if he tries to bite Maharaj Parikshit, we're going to stop it. Like as mentioned, that there was all, because Parikshit being the emperor, there was all soldiers and everything around the place at a distance, and they were on the lookout for Takshaka. And Kashyapa Muni, it's mentioned about Kashyapa Muni had gone there. Well, even if Takshaka bites him, I can, with my powers, I can counteract that. But there's a whole story related how Takshaka thwarted Kashyapa Muni when he was going there to where Maharaj Parikshit was. So Takshaka came disguised as a Brahmana. There's other accounts of him disguising himself in a basket of fruit that the Brahmanas were taking to in the Bhagavatam is mentioned he disguised himself as a Brahmana. I have read in other Puranas that he disguised himself in the basket because it is mentioned that they were on the lookout that someone who looked suspicious who may be disguised as someone else. So then he went into a piece of fruit and he was like inside the fruit, and he's thinking when the Maharaj Parikshit got the fruit, he would come out of the fruit in that way, like that. So there's one story like that. Anyway, but in the Bhagavatam it's meant he was disguised as a Brahmin. So he was ready, and at the end there, when it is mentioned that when he heard everything, Sukadeva Goswami asked him if he was satisfied with hearing everything, and of course Maharaj Parikshit was very satisfied, and Sukadeva Goswami rose and left, and others were still there, and it is mentioned that Maharaj Parikshit went into like a samadhi state in meditation, and even when Takshaka came, he was more or less had left this world, and so Takshaka came and bit him, and then the body burst into flames from the poison of his bite. So he was very well prepared, and of course this mood of doing good, all of us should try to follow in the footsteps of the great devotees. This is certainly the mood of Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. We try to do good for others. We try to help them. Of course, one has to know how to help. Sages and great devotees are very competent to know how to help someone spiritually, and it will be different according to the time, place, and circumstance, the individual, how to actually help them spiritually and materially. So we have to be careful. We're following in the footsteps of the great devotees who always want to help others, but we have to be careful to know how to help. And we have to learn from advanced devotees. We used to, in the early days, we used to have Bhakta of the night classes. So the older devotees would give the class, and this was especially at night time, the devotees would give the class on Bhagavad Gita, and then the new Bhakta would have to come and give a class for 5 minutes. And then the other devotees were around, and then they would be listening to the class, and they would say if the class was good or they'd have to be corrected in some way. So then, I remember it was my turn, 5 minutes, and I thought, well, I read everything like that. And then I thought, well, I think I've got enough material to give the class. But after 1 minute, I was finished. Then I said, well, I guess Prabhupada pretty much said it all here. Any questions? So the devotees were there training and said, well, they made a few other points, and so as you advance you learn more, you learn how to present things. And also we had a program, I remember Moody instigated this program where the new bhaktas, even when there was like festivals and Sunday feasts or anything like that, when the new people came, the newer devotees were asked to sit next to the older devotee to see how they spoke to the new people. Right? They couldn't just speak to the new people immediately. They had to go and sit next to someone and see how they spoke to them. And they said, all right, now next time you've listened to that a few times, next time you can speak. And then the older one would be sitting there. So it was a fairly good program. I thought it was a good kind of program to train up how to present the Krishna consciousness. Just according to your realization, of course, and also according to the individual. You're not going to present it the same to everyone. If you're speaking at university or to some academics, you're going to present it in a certain type of way. And we saw Prabhupada do this. Prabhupada, he spoke to all sorts of people. When he spoke in Sydney to that grammar school, he spoke very simply, and he said he just came in. He said to the young students and said, if I ask you a question, who are you? How would you answer? So proper, how would you answer? Who are you? And then the kids would say, and this is me. And Prabhupada said, no, that's your chest. Another one would point to his head, no, that's your head, but who are you? So Prabhupada presented very, very simply to the kids. So we have to do, the sadhus always want to help people. We have to know how to help people. And they also help us by, here Prabhupada says, there are obstacles on the path of devotional service due to our conditioning and attachment. And so they actually help us by praying, by giving their blessings, and also they can help us even practically, just like is mentioned, the devas can help if there's obstacles, due to certain material conditions. The devas can help. The devotees can help even on those material practical levels, and the obstacles the devotees can help. So it's very, very nice that Parikshit Maharaj was in this situation. Sadhu, 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 jai. Parikshit Maharaj, he jai. So I'll read this again. Anyone have any questions? All the great sages who were assembled, they also praised the decision of Maharaj Parikshit. They expressed their approval by saying, very good. Naturally, the sages are inclined to do good to the common men, for they have all the qualitative powers of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they were very much pleased to see Maharaj Parikshit, a devotee of the Lord, and they spoke as follows. Any questions?
I'm wondering if you can clarify in the last verse, there's the So the demigods, and then the next verse is the sages. Can you clarify the distinction? What is the difference between a sage and a demigod? The sages also come from the higher planets.
Well, in the 12th canto, there's an explanation given by Vishwanath Chakravarti. There, amongst the sages are all different levels of sages, and some were impersonal, some were personalists, and Ghanis, and so on and so forth. And of course, the demigods they're in charge of the different aspects and of the functioning of the universe. They're concentrating on their service in that capacity. And so they can be sage-like, but the sages were concentrating on their generally brahmanas, sages, their study, their activity in that line. The demigods are universal governors and so on. So, but nevertheless, they were very advanced, and Prabhupada mentions that in the heavenly kingdom, no one is an atheist, or what did he say? No one, or disobedient. No one is an atheist or non-believer. He said that, isn't it, last time? And no one in the heavenly planets, there is no one in the heavenly planets who is an atheist or non-believer. So they're very, very advanced. And they can also be sages in their own right, but they have extra functions on that level. So all different types, demigods, sages of different types, and so on and so forth. There are so many different types of personalities were assembled there. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you, Laura. Maybe we could institute, instead of devotees clapping after a class, we could institute sadhu. I don't know why, but I don't know, maybe it's the last 10 years or so. I've noticed that after a class, some devotees will clap the speaker. And I always find that so weird. We never clap Prabhupada. But much nicer to say sadhu.
After the kirtan
Yeah, I know. What's your opinion? The clapping is good, or?
Well, that's a Western.
It's a Western thing. But like the handshake. Like for example, someone questioned sometimes the handshake, but I remember the devotees looking up that there was a handshake between Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma did a handshake, so handshake is actually in Vedic also. So I don't know exactly. I'm trying to think if there was any instance of clapping in the Vedic culture.
We don't usually hear that when the sages are doing stuff like that, not clapping their hands.
Yeah.
They usually just praising and music and drums and showering flowers, but no clapping. I don't know, where did that originate? Is it modern in the Western world?
Sorry?
Is it modern, or is it from hundreds of years ago in the Western world, clapping thing?
Yeah, I don't know when it came in. But I think the spirit is, appreciation, but, we can, this has been brought up before on a number of occasions, but someone complained, I don't know, I'm not just clapping, Should be sadhu. All right, interesting point, yes.
I know in Mahabharata sometimes Brahmanas showing appreciation, they slap their cloth, it's mentioned.
Yeah, okay. They slap their cloth, did you say?
Yeah, not clapping, but just...
Oh, flap the cloth. Okay. All right. Well, someone may go into deeper research and find somewhere they're putting their hands together. So I wouldn't immediately just rule it out, but further research may be necessary.
The clapping is part of the kirtan, so it's not uncommon to clap.
In kirtan,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, we clap in the kid. What are we supposed to do? Sadhu.
That's not apples and apples.
Yes, the Ram Prasad, yeah.
Prabhupada mentioned
Sorry?
Clapping.
I didn't hear that.
All the major tickets when we clap, simple reactions.
Yeah, well.
Clap in front of the deities.
Yeah, so there seems to be clapping is somewhere in the culture. I wouldn't just say no clapping. And it'd be pretty weird if someone starts clapping, you go around and stop them. No clapping. Any other questions?
But we actually do see that when Prabhupada was present, nobody clapped. Either in Kirtan or after class wasn't there, so...
No,
later on,
it seems to have come later on, doesn't it? Yeah, I can't remember it. But anyway, at the same time, I can't rule it out.
And the other, of course, instead of sadhu, sadhu was jai.
Jai, yeah, jai.
Another very common thing. Say
Jai. We used to jai, yeah. Jai was, yeah, that was the main. Jai Prabhupada, yeah, it was jai. It was that was the, in Prabhupada's time. Yeah. Okay, any final? Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.